All right, we ready? I think we are live. So, this is the Find Your Focus workshop. And I just think that when when times are tough, most likely we tend to be more prone to distraction. And then we find ourselves on our phone more, listening to the news more, getting caught up in other people's drama more. And it's because distraction serves a really important function in our lives. It protects us from discomfort. But anyway, so I'm going to get into the things that are keeping us from focus, what the cost of not being focused, why focus is so important, and then simple steps to find your focus or to refocus on what matters most in your life. Let's talk about why sometimes we need to refocus. So when I was just shy of 40, I went to the eye doctor for I'm trying to think, it might have been like the very first time since I had been a teenager. And of course, as you might expect, not going to the eye doctor since you were a teenager until you're 40. He did a little bit more than just correct my vision. But I thought he was just going to quickly run me through the test, make sure there wasn't any disease, all that. But he didn't. Instead, he asked me a few questions like, what do you spend most of the day focusing on? Is it close up work like reading, or is it long range work like driving? What is more important to you? And this surprised me because it wasn't just about seeing better, it was about seeing better for what mattered most in my life. Many of us are struggling with focus because we're not zooming out far enough to see the big picture. We are focused on what has to happen right now. It's like we're firemen, always putting out fires. When ideally, perhaps we want to be more like long range planners, like city planners, like how do we, or fire marshals, how do we make these buildings safer so there's not so many fires? We want to become proactive in our own lives instead of reactive. One of the reasons we struggle with focus is because we feel like we're pulled in too many directions. One of the reasons is because we are too myopic in the way that we're looking at our own life. We're trying to solve for this tiny little piece and this tiny little piece and this tiny little piece. So just like my eye doctor knew that he needed to ask, what is it that I'm wanting to focus on the most to provide the best correction? We also need to understand what's most important to us in order to improve our focus and our productivity. Because, we can be super productive and yet productive on all the wrong things. So just imagine like you were trying to use a set of binoculars without first kind of like pointing them in the right direction. You're adjusting and readjusting, and it's never getting clear because it's not actually pointed at one thing. That's the same thing that happens with our focus. So that's why I wanted to create a workshop so I could walk you through the 3 steps to finding our focus. And we can use this over and over and over again in our lives. I use this with my clients over and over again. And it doesn't matter what the goal is. And it also doesn't matter if you're not even sure what the goal should be. For example, oftentimes when my clients come to me, they want to have a complete life transformation. And so what we do is we find the focus on which area of life. And then we apply the tool again. We go a little bit deeper. We find the focus in that area of life until we get to the point of what is it that I am going to do today that will make my life incrementally better today and exponentially better with time. Think about that, making your life incrementally better and exponentially better also. So, in this workshop, we're going to learn how to focus not on just the immediate task in front of us, but also on the bigger picture. Okay. We are going to ask ourselves a series of questions. First of all, we're going to make sure that you have the bandwidth to garner your focus back. Okay. Now, if you're like a lot of my clients, there might be kids running around. There might be employees in the background. You may not have an office where you can shut the doors. You may be listening to this in a public place. You may be listening to this in your only quiet space, which is your van, it doesn't matter. I'm going to show you the steps. And if you need to find a quieter place to do the exercises, then that's fine. Number one, a lot of times we're just distracted. So, is it your environment that's distracting you, or do you have a lot of jumbled up thoughts? So, one of the things that I like to do, the very first step, is to create space to go deep. And there's a process that I do on my coaching calls where we do this, but let me just give you this simple little tool that you can use on your own time. Just grab a simple piece of paper and set a timer for maybe 3 to 5 minutes and write down everything and anything that can possibly come to your mind. This is the number one simple tool I like to give to my clients when they are distracted. It's just the thought download. It's a simple thought download where you just get all the jumbled up junk out of our head and we corral it on a piece of paper. It doesn't even have to be a notebook. It could be a scrap piece of paper, but you just want one place where you can just kind of like anchor everything down for a little bit so that it's just not crawling around here anymore. It's on a piece of paper. All right. That will create space so that we can move on to the next step. So here's the deal. We are so trained we grew up in the belief that there is not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not enough resources to go around. And it'll take a while to really rewrite our brains to think otherwise. We are also so trained, our brains are so very trained to focus on the negative instead of the positive. So before I give you these questions, I want to tell you a story. In fact, I just sent this out on an email today. I don't know if you're on my email list, Brag About Life, but I send out weekly emails and the replay will be in there. I will drop the link in the comments below if you want to join that later. So anyway, on the email, I talked about let's see, I think it was around 2006, 2007. Oh, it was when I was turning 30. And we had 2 kids under the age of 5. And we were poor, as in making toothpaste out of baking soda, broke, and still didn't have enough money. And it's like, what is wrong with me? I kept on thinking, I must not be frugal enough. What's the deal? I just need to get better at saving money. What else could I do? What else could I do? And about that time, my brother-in-law started talking about this book that he had just read called The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. He's like, you should really listen to this guy. Here's the book. So I read the book and I wasn't very far in the book when Dave Ramsey said, this is so silly. I cannot believe that I did not think about this ahead of time. But Dave Ramsey said, sometimes it's not a savings problem. Sometimes it's an income problem. And I was just like, what? Why did I not think about this before? And as I thought about it, I was like, oh my gosh, we are trying to feed a family of 4 on $11 an hour when it was just the 2 of us, me and my husband, we were both making that and things were tight. Now one of us is making it because we can't afford childcare on $11 an hour. It is not a savings problem. We're never going to save ourselves out of this. We are going to have to make more money. I couldn't see that very, very obvious solution because I was just so focused on the other direction. That's called false focus. False focus is when we are so focused on the negative side of the equation that we can't see the positive side of the equation. So that is why when I give you these questions, I want you to think from a positive viewpoint, not from what is it I have to do, but what is it I am truly desiring to do. Not where am I stuck at, but what am I going for? Okay. There's a big difference. If we answer these questions from a negative viewpoint, we will stay stuck in the exact same situation. And if we're trying to do something like create wealth for our families or build a business or have a better relationship with somebody, we cannot come up with a better solution from a negative mindset. It just doesn't work. So that's the false focus. I want you to be aware of it anytime that you're slipping into the negative side. Another thing that keeps us from focus is the others or outside focus, as in, we are so focused on what is not within our control that we forget to look at what is within our control. I think it was Stephen Covey that blew my mind on this concept, where he drew a circle and then he drew another circle on the inside. And then he said, what's within your control and then what's without your control. And until I saw that diagram, literally had not been distinguishing between the two in my life. So, weather, weather's kind of outside of our control. What's within our control? Prepping for the weather. We just had Hurricane Debbie come through just north of us. Okay, hurricane, whether Debbie becomes a hurricane or tropical storm or does damage to us, all of that is outside my control. What's within my control? Stocking up with water, making sure we have batteries, assessing whether or not we need to evacuate or if our living situation is safe enough. Those things are within my control. Okay, so we've got false control or false focus, which is negative focus, and then we've got others or outside focus. The outside focus are things that are outside of control, but the others focus, this is sneaky. This is when we are letting other people's opinions control us. And sometimes we're not even aware of it. So when you are answering these questions, I want you to answer them honestly and answer them from your perspective and just keep a mind on what might be coloring your answers because you're thinking about what would somebody else say about this. Okay, just be aware of it. All right, so here are the questions. Like I said, these questions, they're kind of like when you're at the eye doctors, they're the lenses that keep on bringing it in sharper and sharper and sharper until you're just like, that's the prescription. That's what I need to do now. Question number one, what's important? A way that you can phrase this is, what is important in my life? What am I hoping to achieve without the pain of this? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to lose weight without feeling hungry all the time? Am I trying to figure out how to start a business while I have small children at home? Am I trying to grow my business without working more hours? Am I trying to scale my business without hiring more people? What's important? What is the kind of the big picture? Sometimes it feels like everything's still important. Go ahead and write all of them down. It's important that I do this. It's important that I do this. It's important that I do this. Okay, that's fine if you want to, put 4 or 5 different things on there because the next question is going to help. Question number 2, what's important now? What's important for this season? Which one of these do I want to choose to focus on now? Now, notice that I didn't say you have to focus or I should focus, but I want to. I desire to focus. It'd be beneficial. It'd be helpful for me. This is all, language is important. The way that we say things and the way that we hear ourselves say things has us either living a more empowered life or a more victimized life. So we want to make sure that we choose our words and that we speak words of life, not words of destruction or disempowerment. So question number 2 is, what's important now? What's important for this season? So that's when you look at the list ahead and you pick like one area or one thing. What's important now? We can't do all of the things, not all at once. We're going to focus on one thing. Do you guys know what focus stands for? Follow one course until success. Focus. Follow one course until success. This is so important because if we try to focus on multiple things, then we'll feel like we're making progress and in none of the areas. Why does that matter? Because ironically, our brains really, really depend upon dopamine to keep us engaged in the process. So you don't want to, you literally want to do things where you get a dopamine kick from being productive in the areas that you chose. Okay. A lot of people are getting dopamine and adrenaline kicks from being firefighters, putting out fires all the time. That's what we're trying to avoid. And we're trying to be proactive in our life instead of reactive. All right. So then the next question, the third question, now we're getting down to the action. What's the next step? It doesn't matter. There's no wrong answer here. That's what's amazing. So a lot of times we want to let perfectionism in or procrastination in and being like, oh, I don't know. Sometimes the next step might be to research some steps and then choose a step. Okay. If that is the very next step, like literally write down, I'm going to research this for an hour and choose the next step. But most of the time, we have an idea of what the next step already is, and we're just kind of dreading taking it. Maybe we're dreading taking it because it's too big. Maybe we're dreading taking it because we feel like we need more information. But we really want to get it down to like literally today. What's the next step? What can I do today? So remember, we started out what's important now, so we can focus on one area. And then thirdly, what's the next step? If you'll go ahead and write it down, then it's amazing how just typing in the comment, what's the next step, is it's a little commitment to yourself. It's a chance for you to own, hey, I am a person that is going to be focused on this step today. Now, I like to ask two more questions just in case those three do not feel like they're complete yet. Question number 4 is, what's stopping me from taking the next step? A lot of times, this is important because when we ask what's stopping us, it's either a belief or it's an actual thing that we need to do. And so it's like, that wasn't the next step. Now, this is the next step, this obstacle that we're going to overcome. So, what's stopping me from taking the next step? So, maybe that's where you found your true next step. And then to tie it all up in a bow, question number 5. And I love this question so much. I ask it all the time. What does done look like? Now, I'm not talking about done as in all question number 1, what's important or what's important now, but no, what does done on this step look like? A lot of times it might look like I did the research and I made a decision. Let's say you're starting a business and you're like, I don't know how to start a business. Should I be an LLC? Should I be a sole proprietor? Where do I even start? What do I find? Okay, what's the next step? Research. What are my options? Okay, so I'm going to research for an hour, and at the end of the hour, I'm either going to take action in filing for myself, or I am going to call an attorney and find out from them what I should do. That's what done looks like, so that okay, I just moved forward because I either found my answer or I decided to go to a professional for the answer. Either one's a great thing. It's amazing what you can find online. And it's also amazing how wonderful it is to go to a professional who just feeds you the answers when you need them. So those are the questions. Okay. But there's 3 steps. First, we had to create space. Second, we had to ask a series of questions to get more clear. And these questions, I ask them all the time. I mean, on a weekly basis, maybe on a daily basis. I definitely ask them also with my clients. What's important? What's important now? What's the next step? And then the 2 bonus questions. What's stopping me? And what does done look like? So what's step number 3 on refocusing and finding our focus? It's just doing it. That's it. Just doing it. This is where we get that dopamine kick. This is where we also sometimes don't allow ourselves to be messy, don't allow ourselves to take chances. Like even doing this workshop, it has been a long time since I've done a Facebook Live, and it's like, oh, technology. And it was messy. It didn't quite work out the way I thought I would. I had to make an adjustment. I was a couple minutes late. Of course, you guys are quite understanding, and I appreciate that. But just do it. There is no substitution for action. Action done imperfectly is better than no action at all, because we learn from taking action. I knew when I was setting up this workshop, so I only gave myself about 2 days to share it and to promote it. But that's because I knew that the sooner that I complete the action, as in what does done look like, the sooner I get to that process, I will have learned so much more so that the next time I can take better action. So many times we're trying to take better action before we've taken any action at all. And it's because we're so hard on ourselves and we're not giving ourselves credit for the fact that it is, look, it's one thing to do things that somebody else tells you to do. It's another thing to be forging a new path in life and figuring it out as you go. In this journey of entrepreneurship, even in parenting, even sometimes in marriage, in a lot of areas of life, there is no discernible, easy pattern, easy recipe to follow for success. There is some trial and error involved. And of course, I think God was intentional about that, as in that is how we gain wisdom, because as we try things and then we learn new principles, we see how those principles apply not to our successes nearly as much as to our failures. So that is why we just want to get into not trying, I'm trying to do this, but no, I did this. I did it all the way. This is what done looks like. And I learned, you know, I'm trying to, or not trying, I'm applying, I'm setting my legal status for my business. And I Googled for an hour and I did the research and I learned that it is way above my pay grade and I need a lawyer. Okay, so therefore I'm going to research 3 lawyers and call one. Or I am, I want to get more clients in my business and I am going to go to 3 networking events. And I'm going to see how, when I tell them what I do, what people's response is. And then I'm going to come back and say, do I need to explain better what I did? What was the outcome of those actions? Allow it to be messy. Be brave enough for it to be messy. Share it on Facebook, create a post. Hiring is a big one for entrepreneurs. Create a space for being able to make hiring mistakes. As in, when you're hiring somebody, perhaps say, this is a probationary period. We're going to see if this works out for me and for you. Is that amenable to you? Whatever you need to do. But sitting in no action out of fear is so much more discouraging and obviously not helpful in our lives. So, anyway, I just want you to understand that. And it kind of wraps all the way back to the beginning when I said sometimes our distraction is serving a purpose. It is helping us, it's keeping fear at bay in our life. I make no bones about the fact that I am a person that has a lot of anxiety. And I have learned a lot of great techniques for managing it. But I've also made peace with the fact that it's never going to go away. It might always. Now, I could be wrong. I'm still trying different things. In fact, I just wrote a note. Let's see if we can get this in the thing. Let's dish. Let's do it scared, honey. Sometimes I've just made peace with the fact that the very first time that I do something, it's going to feel scary. That's just how it's going to feel. Just because it feels scary doesn't mean that I shouldn't be doing it. It just means that I'm going to want to do it a few more times until it's not so scary anymore. But when we look at our life, if we are not intentional about guarding our focus, about choosing what's important to us, then we will by default be paying attention to what's important to other people all the time. Their many dramas, the Kardashians, politics, sports, stock market. That's all this week. But that is counterproductive to us in our life. So I'm not saying that we shouldn't give any of those things our attention. It's a nice little brain break after you have focused on working on your project. I am just saying that what deserves the highest attention is your life, your dreams, your goals, your future. Okay. All right. So that is how you find your focus. You create space, you ask the clarifying questions, and then you do it. And the clarifying questions: what's important? What's important now? What's the next step? What's stopping me from taking the next step? What does done look like? If you have any questions, tag me, specifically tag April Bragg, or just send me a direct message. But if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I think I'd like help. This is not something that I want to explore my own, because it feels like this is exactly what clarity coaching is all about. This is where we look at the very big picture of your life. We look at your purpose. We discover your purpose, in fact, if necessary. We clarify your priorities. We clarify your values. We identify the obstacles that are keeping you stuck and from reaching the next level, or from fulfilling your purpose in a way that feels easy and light to you, as the Bible promises. And then we simplify the action plan, because most times the clients that come to me, they are called to do amazing, great things, and they're too hard on themselves. They're not appreciating their strengths. They're more focused on trying to work on their weaknesses or do it somebody else's way instead of finding their unique way. And so that's why we just get super clear on what is the best path forward for you, so that you can accomplish your goals, so you can bring your ideas to marketplace sooner, so that you shining your light can make the world a better place. If that is something that you would like, you can book a clarity call. For right now, these are still free. And I have room in my calendar to take on 2 new clients. But if you're interested in working with me, then you'll want to start with the clarity call, because then we'll just have a conversation about what it is you're looking to get clear on. What's your next step? Is the program appropriate for you for this season of your life? Yes or no? Are we a good fit? All those questions. And if not, there's no problem either, because I'll just point you to other resources that might be a better fit for you. Let me go to the comments now. Oh, hey, Melanie. Love the idea that if we don't focus on what is important to us, we will allow others to determine our focus. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I spent I literally did not understand that concept myself until about 5 or 6 years ago. And then the difference in my life after I understood that concept, after I started focusing on what matters most to me, to our family, to our future, it was it was a game changer. It was huge. And what's so interesting is we think that it's a selfish thing to focus on what matters to us. But it's really not, because usually what matters to us is a blessing to others when it comes fulfilled, when it's finished, when it's completed. So I'm glad that that resonated with you, because, yeah, it was a game changer for me. So, all right. Any other comments? Any other questions? If not, we are going to close this and send you on your blessed way. All right. All right. This has been fun, and so much fun. I might be doing another one soon. So stay tuned. Okay. Bye.